Hello, my name is Dr. Ronald C. Williams. I am Associate Professor of Management at Coppin State University and founding director of the Center for Strategic Entrepreneurship. Hopefully you are enjoying the conference so far. A lot of great information has been shared, and hopefully you're connecting with colleagues and friends and making new friends, and you're getting a very enjoyable experience out of the conference this year. This segment is very near and dear to my heart, and I am so pleased to be able to bring together some of my colleagues from the campus, from Coppin State University, but across disciplines. It's not too often that faculty collaborate across disciplines, but today we're going to talk about that becoming a more frequent phenomenon and some of the benefits and the value that is received out of what I refer to and many others refer to as transdisciplinary research. We use the term transdisciplinary as opposed to interdisciplinary because it implies that we are moving beyond or transcending the silos that tend to exist in academia. One of the benefits is that when you are getting insights from different perspectives, it leads to more creativity and innovation. So I am very pleased today to have my colleagues, Dr. Ramona Calhoun, Dr. Michelle Richardson, and Dr. Elgin Clue. Welcome to EICAC 2022. And I'm going to ask if you would individually introduce yourselves. Perhaps you would like to say something about your program, where you teach and conduct research. And after that, we will begin right into our questions, our dialogue, a conversation for the day. Dr. Calhoun, why don't you go first?
Hello, everyone. It is certainly a pleasure to be here with you. I am Dr. Mona Calhoun, chairperson for the Health Information Management Program at Coppin State University. And our area, I'm proud that this program is the only accredited bachelor's program in health information management, as well as we just started a master's program this semester. My research interest is with students with learning disabilities and post-secondary education, and opportunities to make sure that the playing field is level for them. My PhD is in psychometrics, and so my research is primarily around that area. So happy to be here.
Thank you. Dr. Clue?
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me here today. I'm joining you from the Department of Applied Social and Political Sciences. We are a multidisciplinary department. We have several majors in our department. I coordinate the social science major, and I also coordinate the anthropology minor. To that end, I'd like to just mention that anthropology, being a minor at Coppin State, is kind of special because out of all of the HBCUs in existence, I believe there's only about 5 that actually have as much as a minor in anthropology. Only about 20 that actually teach an intro to cultural anthropology course. So as a discipline, it's rather absent in the HBCU context. I went to the University of South Florida and got my master's and my PhD in applied anthropology in a very large program there with over almost 30 full-time professors in that one department. But so also in terms of where I research mostly in the city of Baltimore. These days, I've gotten onto this project regarding the Laurel Cemetery and the preservation of African-American cemeteries. But as an anthropologist, I've also in the past gotten to do research in Florida and Zimbabwe, and I look forward to doing more international work in the future.
Thank you, Dr. Clue.
Oh, hello, Michelle Richardson. I am an assistant professor in the assistant professor of sport management in the College of Business at Coppin State University. I am also president-elect of the North American Society for the Sociology of Sport, as well as being on the board member of COSMA, which is the Commission on the Accreditation of Sport Management. I am very happy and pleased to be here. Coppin State University is one of the few HBCUs which houses the sport management program in the College of Business. Most are out of the College of Education. And sport management is so transdisciplinary. I was about to get me with that interdisciplinary. It's very transdisciplinary. And it's like my research mostly is on the HBCU athletic college experience and mostly focusing on the Black female. But I'm working on other projects right now. I'm working on a project with a colleague in Canada, and we're looking at the lived experiences of Black female hockey fans right now, which actually we've submitted it. We've been sent back for revisions twice, but they haven't said no. So I'm very hopeful.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to have all of you, each and every one of you. I have worked with each of you in some capacity in the past. Dr. Clue and I have actually co-published, and he's the first urban anthropologist that I have worked with, and worked with Dr. Calhoun on a project. And I have to say, she is the first PhD psychometrician that I have worked with. But I've gotten the benefits of working across disciplines, and the value that comes along with that. We all have our preferences in terms of methodologies, in terms of our philosophy, the philosophies of science, and a lot of it comes out of, I think, how we were trained. The programs that we all probably graduated from on the doctoral level, our advisors probably had some methodological preferences of their own, and we picked up from the people who trained us. But would each of you say something about your methods that you prefer, that you use most often, and maybe, you know, how you came to those particular approaches to science?
So I'll start. My doctoral work was very traditional. It's almost as if you had to be placed in a box in order to get through that doctoral work. So the committee members were of the same discipline. However, I've kind of pushed and prodded a little bit to get an individual on my team who was not necessarily a psychometrician. He did have statistics expertise, but I was more so interested in his work with students with learning disabilities and his psychology side of that he would bring to the table. And now that I'm on the other side of through, my research going forward will have to include other disciplines outside of the psychometrics, or to fully understand the subjects and the topics that we're researching. As far as methods, types of methods, quantitative, qualitative, or mixed methods is most of interest to me. But when we talk about who's going to be around the table, it definitely has to include other disciplines.
Quick question for you, Dr. Calhoun. Your skill set and your expertise is defined, and it's an area that I do not think in probably the general body of researchers that everybody would have. I don't know what the statistics are. I do know that there are a lot of people who do survey research, and you pick up as much as you can when you can, and the whole area of test and measurements and how you do what you do. Are you finding a particular demand for your expertise? And you mentioned mixed methods. How often are you finding that void in people that may use other methodologies?
Absolutely, finding more requests and more interest. It's almost like a light bulb has gone off in the last 5-10 years or so that, oh, psychometricians, y'all really exist, and this is what you do. Validating and checking the reliability is not just for surveys and instruments. And one of the things that I've done is introduced psychometrics and the importance of it in other fields. Like my traditional experience is health information management, but that's managing patient data. But when you transfer that information into the research side, then you understand why validating that data and how to use that data in order to, strategize and that kind of, you can use that in any field. And so I have been going across lines in all disciplines, presenting and submitting proposals all over the place, just to help people to understand how important and how you can use psychometricians and the work that they do for setting up tests, creating a test in a classroom, survey interviews. It's just so much broader than that. And you'll have to remind me what the second question was.
Well, you sort of answered it.
Okay.
Because finding a void of those kinds of skill sets in other disciplines, and it gets to the demand question as well. Yes. So I can absolutely see that, and I know even in my own experience, again, when I'm developing something, I do not come with that level of expertise. So it is very valuable. What about you, Dr. Koo? Your preferences in terms of methodology? You are an anthropologist, and that term ethnography comes to my mind, but can you say a little bit about your particular leanings when it comes to methods?
Definitely, ethnography is the basis of my methodological training and describes broadly what I do. Anthropology is a broad discipline, very broad, and so ethnographic methods are inclusive of quite a few different strategies. So in my anthropological practice, I kind of have two basic strains of interest. One is community development or community revitalization, and the other is heritage. So what I'm interested in doing is community-based research, or where I'm actually doing participant observation, taking part in activities of the community that I'm studying, that I'm observing, but not just standing there as an objective observer, actually taking part in assisting community members in achieving desired goals. And that's part of what led me to this current project I'm working on with the preservation of Baltimore's historic Laurel Cemetery, because it's a combination of community development strategies and a focus on heritage in the community. So that has gotten me to work with folks from various disciplines. When I just think about the various individuals I'm working with right now, as we speak, I'm working with graphic designers, landscape architects, historians, archivists. There's several others that there's just those off the top of my head that are genealogists. So there are always demands based upon the particular project that you're involved in, where nobody is an expert in everything. But when you find that you have certain goals, you're ready to find those skills wherever you need them to accomplish that goal.
It's very interesting. Your field, your research field is the urban landscape. Mm-hmm. How did you select that as opposed to any other research field that may be available to you? You mentioned Zimbabwe. You could be on a dig or something in internationally. How did you choose urban anthropology?
Well, I have to admit, some of it was expedience. We're in West Baltimore at a teaching institution, so it's not that easy to get too far away from campus on a regular basis. And there are so many needs in the immediate community where we work. It's a natural laboratory, natural place to do work. So I had a lot of questions when I first started working at Coppin State in terms of how did the community come to be as it is. So I started to wrap my research and teaching around understanding the community that I found myself spending most of my waking hours in. There's so many issues in West Baltimore that then transcend, you can apply those same learnings to researching communities elsewhere and do a lot of compare and contrast, which is a lot of what anthropologists strive to do. But a lot of it, I guess I would say, was the expedience of needing to align my research efforts with the geographical location of where I found myself.
Dr. Richardson?
Yes.
Your preferences, how did you come to them?
Honestly, I like mixed methods because of sport, because of what a sport is. Most sport people, when you're a hardcore sport manager, there's a lot of people who want to do straight numbers. These are the numbers that say that. I am a person that believes there's a story behind those numbers. Numbers tell you one thing, but I like to know the why behind the numbers. So I try to do mixed methods. Also, in doing mixed methods, I find you get a lot more, you get a lot more information that can actually turn into multiple research products. There's nothing specific because I do work transdisciplinary. And so whereas my thing might be just doing the straight numbers, doing surveys, doing a survey, like the gentleman I'm working with now in Canada, we did interviews for our article that we did. So we interviewed 18 women from across the country and in North America, because some of them are Canadian. And so we got these stories out of them. And so I like interviewing. Once again, it's just kind of a pain when you have to start doing the coding, when you have to start doing the coding and breaking it down. Trust me. It's like, thank God for softwares that are being built for that.
I know the pain.
And as I said, though, it's such a richness. It's like, I can tell you that, Tom Brady has a pass percentage of X, Y, and Z, but that's just numbers. And I'm going to tell you, numbers are just boring. I mean, you have some people out there who really like the numbers, and that's great. But then I'm like, okay, great, he threw this many passes and he had this many, or the pitcher had an ERA of that. But now I want to know, who did he throw those passes to? What defenses who was he playing against? I want to know the story of the game. It's like watching a sporting event. We want to know, the nuances of the game, and you can only get that through a qualitative, through some type of qualitative research. So you can get both. And I just came to that just from doing my dissertation. My dissertation was on Division III organizational commitment among Division III athletic directors. And I wanted to do something far more rich, I'll be honest with you. And I had to stop because my longtime mentor and longtime mentor, friend, big brother, and committee member said, save the world after you get the letters. Because I wanted to do this really full thing. He's like, save the world after you get the PhD. Right now, you're going to do a survey and be done with it. But once again, it was just from that survey, I was just like, but why? But why? And so that's why I said mixed methods is really great. So you get the numbers to complement the qualitative.
Thank you so much. And this next question, any of you can jump in, but it has been my experience in terms of the benefits and really the enjoyment of working across disciplines. That's one side of it, because you do get not only the richness that comes along with finding out what other disciplines, what questions they are answering, but then you get the methodological spice, that sort of adds to the creativity and gets to the story that you mentioned, the how and the why behind the numbers, and being able to craft a narrative behind just the quantitative data. One of the issues is that, and I think it builds silos, that you run into is people will disparage the other. If you come from a quantitative perspective, or you were developed your skills in quantitative methods, the tendency I found in higher ed is to look down on those who are involved in qualitative and vice versa, not really understanding that it's all science. It's all science. Some of it is more basic. The purpose is different. Those who are involved in qualitative are building theory. It's a theory building exercise. In my preferences, which is not only qualitative, but I love case methodology. You are proposing hypotheses that are made off of inferences for somebody else to test. But that's the other end of the epistemological spectrum, for them to then take those hypotheses and test them. When we get into situations where one method is being disparaged or looked down upon by another, it really stands in the way of you being able to develop an effective research team. So you're bringing people from different methodologies, asking them to work on a team. But one of the things you may need to do is to work on the team even before you deal with the methodology. Have either of you worked on across disciplines in a situation where you had to build an effective team, even though people may have been coming from different methodological ends of the spectrum? Have you ever found yourself in that type of situation? Or if it was not a team, perhaps it was a preference within your dissertation committee, but somewhere where you found those differences to be a barrier.
Dr. Williams, I can honestly say I've never had that. Sport is such an umbrella. There's nothing, honestly, that there's no major at Coppin State University that can't be worked, be a transdisciplinary study with sport. We have health sciences, which is very big in sport. The anthropology and the sociology definitely is a part of sport because sport has all these historical markers and things. I don't really actually know what you do, Dr. Calhoun, even though you've explained it, but I'm sure there's a place for it in sport as well. I remember when I was in my doctoral program, one of my classmates was an architect. And he wanted to use his skills as an architect. He wanted to work as an architect, but work in building stadiums. So it's just kind of like that's the thing that attracted me to sport management, is that I didn't have to be in a box. It was very fluid, and I could work across disciplines, transdisciplinary, and just find out these very rich and develop these very rich and nuanced stories, either through numbers or through qualitative methods. And I've never had a colleague who, I won't say I've never had it, but there are people who are hardcore sport numbers people. Mostly, they're marketing, they're the marketing people, the analytics. We have, sport analytics is very big, and they're the numbers people. But even then, I haven't met anybody who wouldn't say, wow, I wonder what this, hey, let's get together. I've known people to get together and say, well, I have these analytics. Let's talk about the story behind that analytics. So I can't necessarily say that I've run into a brick wall on that.
But Dr. Richardson, you would probably, if you looked a little deep, you'd find some psychometricians in that analytics group. That is exactly one of the things that they look at. They look at scores. They tell the story using that data. With scores, but I agree with you 100%. I don't think there is, even in the psychometric world, while there may be some of my colleagues who are more traditional and are the quantitative, those of us coming along later appreciate the qualitative. We appreciate having, talking to others in other disciplines. I don't think I can do research on it, characteristics or behaviors without involving some other discipline to get some insight and input. I had mentioned I had a slight pushback on the members of my committee, and one voice was, it's important that they have that psychometrics understanding and knowledge so that they can help you with your analysis and your methods. And I'm like, okay, that's great, but what about that human piece of this whole research? I need someone who has understanding in that area, in that discipline, who can tell us the story behind the numbers. The numbers are going to tell us, the data is going to tell us a story. But as Dr. Richardson said earlier, there is another story behind that data that you cannot get just from the numbers. So I know in my future research, it will cross disciplines. It will, engage other people. I can't imagine not doing that.
Dr. Calhoun, actually those psychometrics probably come really when we see them in sport. Once again, I would tell you there's probably marketing because they're trying to get you to buy. And what is it can we trigger to get that person to buy that thing, to buy a new jersey every year? I think American Express did a good job in the psychometrics that they have a thing that if you buy your jersey with the American Express card or something like that, and your player leaves the team, they'll buy back the jersey and help you get a new one wherever that player lands or something like that. That had to be psychometrics.
Indeed.
What about you, Dr. Koo?
I wanted to respond. Yeah, I've not had really too many issues or horror stories of trying to validate my research approach in the context of working with other researchers, but I have had some challenges. I can think of two specific examples. One where I was working with individuals I was on a research team with sociologists and folks who were doing doctoral degrees in curriculum, people in the College of Education. And another where I found myself with a group of PhD historians. And in both of those cases, the challenge was catching up, trying to catch a hold of the jargon that was being thrown out. They were referencing different books and different authors that were well known in those particular fields and that were considered like the ABCs of those fields, but we didn't get exposed to those authors or those writings in my classes in my PhD program. So that was a little bit destabilizing. I think one of your authors referred to a disorienting dilemma. I experienced that a little bit in terms of just making myself have to branch out and become a sponge and learn an entire new jargon around approaching the same phenomena I've been studying the whole time. And that is eye-opening because it just allows you to kind of open your mind into different perspectives, different strategies, different solutions. So the challenge is there though, and the challenge can sometimes be a little bit uncomfortable. And I can imagine some people like to retreat to their silos because they're busy and they don't feel like they have the time to learn a whole nother disciplinary approach. But there is so much to be gained in doing that and in that effort of learning that alternative or different approach.
That is a great segue into my next question, because how in your various disciplines do you infuse creativity in your research and innovation? I think that's really important to keep a fresh, open eye for the relevant questions and to make sure that we're always sort of leaning in that direction. Are there particular approaches in your discipline that allows you to do that more effectively?
I think in the field of psychometrics, innovation, at least from my perspective, is natural because the data, the research is going to take you down a path that you had no idea you were going. And it might require you to do something non-traditional or in order to pull more out of that. So for me, it's what's coming from your exploration or your study and being open and willing to step out of that box in order to get more from what you find or what you're finding. And I don't know that everyone in the field subscribes to that, but for me, it's exciting when you can discover and do something in a different way and get excellent results, or even in some cases when the results are not what you expected them to be. It's still, if you need to climb this bar in order to get what you need to do, that might not be what you used to, going around in a circle, but you got to climb a bar to get it. I think that is just exciting to me, and it should be embraced.
Yes, keeps it cutting edge.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. What about anyone else? Innovation. How do you keep innovation in your efforts to do research and to in your inquiry?
Well, a couple of thoughts on that. The project that I'm engaged in has I've had several different opportunities within that project to kind of expand my skill set, whether it's learning more about archaeological excavation or some of the issues in terms of how to make a short documentary, how to build a website, how to construct an exhibit for a museum, even how to deal with local politicians. It's really based around, the innovation is really based around the ideas of what you want to do, the goals, and what you'd like to achieve. So one of the things I've also tried to do, and I've told people in terms of my developing your career as a scholar, it's important to, I think, focus on developing yourself within your disciplinary context, but also within your methodological context. So within my discipline, I'm active with several organizations. I'm the archivist for the Association of Black Anthropologists, and I go to those conferences, but I also try to go to conferences that are based in methodologies. One organization I belong to is the Oral History Association. And I went to the University of Texas at Austin a couple of years ago and took a summer class in oral history methodology. In that class, I was the only anthropologist in there. There were several historians. There were people from English literature, journalism. It was interesting to see the variety of individuals who came to that particular session. And these were faculty from colleges all throughout the country. So I think having that methodological base of activity helps keep me up to date in terms of innovations in that area that I can then utilize and to make my anthropological practice that much better.
Excellent.
I can just basically echo, yes, agree with definitely what Dr. Calhoun and Dr. Clue said. Once again, I was always told you let the story lead you into the direction. And then once again, I said, I know my strengths and I know my weaknesses. So I know my strengths. I don't need, if I'm researching with someone, I don't need them to have my strengths. I need them to have strengths that complement my strengths. And in that way, that's to me also where the innovation starts to come. It's like, well, I can do this. Well, I can do that. It's like, I would love to do something with Dr. Clue. Dr. Clue saying, make a documentary. And that's been something that I've been like trying to do is is to do a documentary on HBCU homecomings and classics. And that, wow, we'll have to talk.
That'll be good.
But, it's these, like I said, it's these things that you talk to people, psychometrics. It's like, oh my goodness. It's like, I'm getting all tingly just being on this panel. My spidey senses are just off the chart. So it's really knowing who you're researching with and letting your strengths and their strengths complement each other. It's not about having this one strong, anthropology type of thing. It's about telling the story and maybe having some numbers in with that story of the Laurel Cemetery or with, Black female hockey. So you kind of just have to let that story tell you which way to go. Have an idea, definitely, but let the story tell you where it needs to be going.
But isn't that what transdisciplinary research is? Because you learn from one another, and the way I may have been trained or accustomed to, if I get on a project with Dr. Clue or Dr. Richardson, now I'm inviting them in to tell me how they do their research or how they get to the information. And I don't think that you can do that if you stay in a silo. And I'm with you, Dr. Richardson. I'm going to be connecting with Dr. Clue in some kind of way. I'm excited about anthropology now.
Yes, yes, yes.
Well, oh, sorry. The thing is, like I said, and also being, as Dr. Clue was saying, he's, the part of the Oral History Society. That's also being in a space that feeds that. I am a part of organizations, but actually I'm starting a group of women scholars. We call ourselves the Sister Docs. We've known each other since we were grad students. And we were talking and we realized that there was no space, really a space specifically for Black women or women of color to do their research in sport. There's no place like that. So we're trying to create that space right now. And that'll be another incubator for this innovation to come out.
Well, let me say, I'm loving the synergy here. And just the energy and desire to learn and pursue new pathways. And I'm thinking of my own, even though I'm a management person, but the streams that contribute to that discipline are so varied that you find yourself working with just about anybody and everybody. And my latest is relational sociology and the relational networks that are built. And that's what this reminds me of, because this seems like it's another relational network that is coming together around something new and something different. And you're discovering it. Let me bring it home. Let me bring it home in this last leg of the conversation. We're at Coppin State University. And I really like to point out to everybody that all HBCUs are not the same. You have public, you have private, you have land grant, non-land grant, you have urban, you have rural, you have big, you have small. We aren't all the same. But in our context, how do you think on the institutional level, we can bring more innovation and opportunities across disciplines? How do we do that as faculty? What are some of your ideas?
Dr. Williams, the Center for Strategic Entrepreneurship was one of the greatest things Coppin could have agreed to do. I have sat in on many of the presentations and even these opportunities here. It brings colleagues together. It gives us opportunities to share what we are doing, as well as opportunity to explore new things. I did not know until I went to the workshop this fall, the conference this fall, I could, turn my doctoral work and the books and things I want to write into a business. That I can take my health information management, that's information management of patient data, but the skill set is managing information. And I can take that to work with Dr. Clue and looking at the data and information on, persons that have either gone on before or, anything. I can use, my skill sets and things from psychometrician part to work with Dr. Richardson in sports management. I am not a sports person by any means, but the data and the information and why that player is able to jump 6 feet or get that in on the first shot, and behind that is awesome. And so when you ask, what can we do, or what else can we do? This center and these opportunities and continuing to provide these venues is amazing, and it's awesome. And I'm looking forward to a research boot camp, an opportunity to really dive in and go through the process of doing research with colleagues in other disciplines and of that nature, and coming out with products that, you know, we may not have otherwise imagined or could do on our own.
Well, thank you so much. And you're teeing up something that I don't want us to end before I share. But after Dr. Clue and Dr. Richardson respond, I do want to say something about our faculty fellows group that we are kicking off. And they will serve exactly the purpose that you just described. But what about on an institutional level, Dr. Clue or Dr. Richardson? How can we advance innovation in our research?
Well, I think one thing that I was thinking of as Dr. Calhoun was talking is just simply, you know, we have silos in our little small university. And so if I had a research project and I knew I needed some other skill sets, where do you go to figure out what the skill sets of the various faculty at even Coppin State are? It might be easier to know who's in your college, but once you go to another building, to another college, I didn't know about psychometrics till today, or that Dr. Calhoun was involved in that at all, or what it was. But so one thing is just having a venue to have these discussions, kind of methodologically based discussions about that individuals from different disciplines can come to and share their practices or their views or desires to learn about these specific methodologies would be good. As I said, I've gone all the way to Texas just to talk about oral history. We could have a conversation like that at Coppin State that could involve several people from different disciplines. Another class I've had my eye on that I would have actually gone if it's one of the pandemic casualties. The Center for Documentary Studies at Duke University is something I paid the deposit for and was going to go, and I still might go in the future. But that's a place you can go and gain some skills in the documentary practice and so forth. To what extent could we have something like that locally? So that's the kind of thing that I would be looking for and would really want to take advantage of.
For me, all those things that Dr. Clue just said, he just said, but they were all at HWIs. We've got to start bringing them onto our campuses and let them see all the greatness that's on the Coppin State University campus, the Howard University campus, North Carolina A&T, Bethune-Cookman, Tougaloo. You know, we've got to let them know. We've got to bring them to us. You know, I remember when I first came to Coppin and I was on this COSMA commission and I'm like, wow, you know, I said, we should bring them. I was talking to a friend and I was like, man, we need to get that to Coppin, that, you know, because Coppin, you know, Baltimore is a very sport rich city. And somebody was like, man, you don't be bringing them white folks down on North Avenue. I'm like, well, they're coming anyway, you know. But I mean, it's like, you know, sometimes people think, you know, and I told him, I said, wait a minute, don't disparage North Avenue. I lived in LA for 10 years. And let me tell you where University of Southern California is located. Okay. We used to call them the University of Scared Caucasians. So, you know, you can't, don't, you know, disparage a university because of the zip code, you know, but we need to start bringing them to our campuses. We need to have those type of classes, those type of conferences. We got to bring them to us. We got to quit going to them. I just went to a conference at the University of South Carolina, but I've never been to a conference at an HBCU, and we're more than capable of making that happen.
Yes, I'm in absolute agreement with you. And really, that is what this conference is all about. If you have looked at the itinerary, and for those who have been able to enjoy the program thus far, you'll see that we have presenters from all over the country. And it's about showcasing what we're doing here at Coppin and allowing the world to see the brilliance that exists here. So I'm in agreement with that. Well, and also thank you so much. Intellectual curiosity is making sure that your intellectual curiosity is always high. I think is probably the best way to remain innovative and being able to collaborate and being collegial and working across disciplines. I mentioned the Faculty Fellows Program. The Center for Strategic Entrepreneurship will launch our Faculty Fellows Program, where we will invite faculty from across disciplines to look through an entrepreneurial lens, but to bring the brilliance that comes from all of their disciplines to the table and do exactly what we are advocating for here. That is intellectual curiosity that brings innovation. So I thank you. I thank you for your brilliance, and I thank you for shining a very, very, very positive light on Coppin State University. And the conversation is to be continued. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.